Guys, this video is brought to you by freedomraffle.org. They are giving away a brand new Tesla Model S Plaid. We love doing giveaways and we love it when you guys win these cars. So head to freedomraffle.org to support our Afghan allies and hopefully win a brand new Plaid.
Good morning, welcome back to Out of Spec Reviews, and welcome to what is a motorcycle that is DC fast charging. What a concept. Yeah, this is the Harley, the Livewire One. Almost call it Harley Davidson because that's what it was. And perhaps brilliantly, they have separated that out to the Livewire brand, which is still under the Harley Davidson umbrella. But I think that's a brilliant separation. I'll talk about that later. But here it is. So for me, this started on my radar back in 2015 when the Project Livewire was unveiled, the concept bike, Harley's foray into electrification. And especially in Avengers 2, the film, when Black Widow was riding the concept bike, I fell in love with the bike. They did a tour around the country with those concept bikes, went and saw it, rode it, I was fascinated. The specs on paper were terrible, but it looked awesome. Now we have the actual official version. But the competitors, the biggest ones I would say that compete with this are the Zero SRF and the Energica Eva Rebelle. Not sure if I said that right, but those are kind of similar designs, similar fan base or customer base. So I'll mention them throughout this video just for brief comparison's sake, but we'll do more in-depth stuff later with those bikes. This is really focused on Harley. What have they finally brought us? So what I'll be doing for your education or maybe just entertainment purposes is taking you on a full tour of this bike, a nice walk around, look at all the details, do some riding, of course, in various environments, and our standardized 70-mile-an-hour range test and charging test, which is being done right now. We have a lot to get into, so buckle up, like as in the, helmet buckle. So let's take a look at this thing. Honestly, when it first came out, I was a little bit disappointed. Based around my thoughts on the concept. Like, the concept looks so freaking cool, and then this came out and it felt toned down, a little bit muted for road use, which is typically what happens with most concept cars, honestly. But what's interesting is the specs on paper, especially comparing this to a Zero, which I feel is its closest competitor. The SRF has 110 horsepower and 140 pound-feet of torque, while this has 105 horsepower and only 84 pound-feet of torque. So that's less on both accounts. But what about power to weight ratio? Well, I'm no mathematician, but that's also worse. This is 560 some pounds versus the SRF tops out at 500 pounds and can be spec'd a bit less. With some time with this, I kind of wanted to figure out, do specs on paper really mean that much? That's a great question, and it's honestly the type of thing where you just have to put your butt in the seat and find out. So before we get too deep into this, let's talk price. This Livewire starts at about $22,000 to $23,000, which is a lot of money for a bike. But there's a lot of Harleys that are more expensive than this. And actually what's interesting is when the Harley Davidson Livewire came out before they switched brands, it started around 30 grand. Premium price for what they were pitching as a premium product. This with an $8,000 price slash amidst all the ongoing COVID chaos and inflation, all that is impressive, genuinely. Once I found out about the price decrease now with the Livewire One, I was impressed. So starts around 22, 23 grand. You can spec it up to close to 30 with some options, but they're not like critical options. It's almost more like little body decal, like accents, like carbon type things. I don't know, not the same, not like Zero where like you have to spec LED headlight or LED turn signals and like a charge tank or a power tank. This doesn't have any of that. This also doesn't have any onboard storage at all other than what I showed you under the seat. So that's a little disappointing. So on one hand, feels like a really good product, but honestly, we're just gonna have to ride it and find out to see how much it's really worth. Zero's bikes are about the same. The SRF is really competitive to this. Might start a little bit less, but by the time you spec it how you want, it's probably a little bit more. And then the new DSRX starts at $24,995 or something like that. So definitely pricey. And then Energicas are also pretty pricey. that's just the state of electric motorcycles right now. The only way to get cheap ones is to get smaller ones with very little range, still extremely fun, extremely nimble. I would love to own an FXE, but with these bigger, I guess, naked kind of sport bikes, yeah, you're gonna pitch a pretty penny. As far as aesthetic details, it really does have a lot of things right. Like, I will make fun of endlessly the fact that Zero does not have LED turn signals by standard, even on their new $25,000 starting price DSRX. This one does, and they look great from both sides, front and rear. But on the front, LED light looks good, nice kind of a cafe bobber style. Good minimalist fairings. You can of course get windshields and stuff decked out on this bike. This is bare bones, standard as is. You can opt for some carbon fiber accents, but honestly, as a bare bones bike, looks pretty good. Down here you have this, which I'm not exactly sure what's underneath there. This is metal, this is plastic, this is plastic, this is plastic. A lot of plastic. This actually feels pretty cheap. Like when you're going over bumps, you hear rattles that you would rather not hear, but in general, it seems extremely well built. It's got the Harley Davidson, you know, research of over 100 years on how to make a motorcycle. So they've done a lot of things really well. I think it looks fantastic. The battery is right here. This battery is 15.6 kilowatt hours, sourced from Samsung. The nominal capacity is about 13.5. So that's decent, but still not a very big battery. The Zeros can be optioned with 17 kilowatt hours and change. And of course, Energica infamously has over 20 kilowatt hours, 21-ish, I think. So that's why those get more range. And yeah, this has a smaller battery, but still weighs more. So that's interesting. Maybe it's the rest of the stuff that plays into that. Around here, foot pegs, just the rear brake right here. And then up here you have this brake, which actually does front and rear together. That is interesting as well. This looks super cool. I like this sprocket. Now, Zero actually took a page out of Harley's bike. Well, I don't know who actually designed it first, but the new DSRX has this same type of mindset where the sprocket actually connects to the wheel further in. It doesn't go to the middle and then in and outward again. It actually connects further in, which is more efficient, so you don't have to send the power all the way in and then back out again at the wheel. But this is a belt drive, just like the Zeros, so not a chain. And I haven't really heard anyone doing chain conversions on these as much, I think because chains are mostly for like off-road type of situations. Rear turn signals back here on the like plate area itself, and this bar features the integrated taillight, which is nice and bright. Really nothing up here. They already did the whole tail clean thing, which I think adds to why this is such a really clean looking bike. Now you have fully adjustable Showa suspension, which actually Zero uses Showa as well, so that's pretty similar. You can adjust things here as well as stuff up here, and even the preload right over here. On the handlebars, you have a lot more going on. So this is how you basically start and stop it, and then you have flashers here, the start button here. So this is the kill switch. The secondary kill switch is of course the kickstand. The mode changing, turn signals on one on each handlebar, which is kind of frustrating. I do wish they were both on this side. And the kill switch being right here, actually there's been a few times where you accidentally hit it, or I have, and even Timon has. He spent some time with these as well, where trying to reach over for the mode, you end up hitting the kill switch. So I wish those were maybe flip-flopped or moved around a bit. Really clean integration of the brake fluid. I don't like how Zero is just a weird clear thing, although I guess that lets you keep a track of the level itself. Over here, brights and stuff, really good horn, and cruise control, which is awesome. We'll look at that later. Really clean looking mirrors. I think just really everything's done quite well on this bike. Looks like kind of an intake thing here, which I think is mostly aesthetic, but I'm sure it has a little bit of actual useful purpose. And over here, the rear brake. So the front brake is Brembo. The rear one doesn't outright say, oh yeah, it does, Brembo badge. So both Brembo brakes. So Zero has this reverse, so the brake on the right side, the belt on the left side. So they've opted for this way. I don't know if all their gas bikes are that way, but that's how they've done it. Rear foot pegs for the rear passenger. Of course, you can option like saddlebags or get like a kind of a bag up here, which I'd probably want to do because there's really no storage on the bike. We'll take a look under the seat here, which you open here. And this can pull up. there is your EVSE that they include, which is pretty small, and it is just a kind of a single household prong situation. In fact, there's really no point in doing like a level 2 charging because this doesn't level 2 charge. We'll get on that more in the charging section of this video. And then to lock the actual handlebars, you have to actually use the key right here to lock those. So you don't actually need the key to start it, which is nice. I guess it's just a wireless like proximity fob. That's my guess, because yeah, keyless, which is kind of great. And then up here is the touchscreen. By the way, touchscreen, which is fantastic. Lets you adjust all sorts of things like settings, ride modes itself, road, sport, rain, range, and 3 custom ride modes. We'll look at those a bit later, but that's absolutely fantastic. Adjust things like appearance, analog, digital. Yeah, whole lot of things you can do in here. So this right here on the handlebar, this right here is for controlling the screen, and you can actually set things to be left and right, and you can click in, so you can control the screen from the handlebars really easily, actually much easier than a Zero, plus it's a touchscreen. Now the touchscreen capability seems to be disabled while you're riding, which is good, I think, but it lets you see more in-depth things like the watt hours per mile, battery temperature on the right, and then of course your odometer and stuff on the left. So we'll be keeping an eye on that for the actual range test. That's kind of a brief look around of this bike. So we are starting right off with the street mode, or I guess the road mode. They have road, range, rain, and sport, I think. But anyways, normal road riding, this is the mode I think most people would probably use. Wow, what a stunning day for a ride. Perfect weather, perfect scenery. We are down around 36% state of charge, so not a full pack voltage, but super close. The bike doesn't actually cut power till the very bottom of the battery, but more on that in the range test itself. Anyways, this feels super planted. The center of gravity feels nice and low. Typically you have the engine as a low point, you know, between your legs and the middle of the bike, but this has basically a battery where the engine would be, which also allows for the same low center of gravity. It's just super smooth. No windscreen though, which definitely adds to fatigue, but it's an option, of course. You can always add one to your bike. I think it looks really good without a windscreen, but no. Anyways, Harley. I know this is Livewire, but Harley, loud pipes save lives. That's what pretty much everyone says. And this is not loud. So the concept that they showed off years ago, well, I guess 8 years at this point, showed it being a bit louder, like with more drivetrain noise, almost sounded like a jet whizzing by. But at least it's smooth and allows for defensive riding with the incredible speed on tap at any time. This does have auto-canceling turn signals, something I wish Zero and other bikes have, but they're really only useful for super obvious turns. We'll see that in a minute, but I'm wondering how exactly they calculate that. I know there's a 6-axis control system measuring inputs like lean angle. Oh, there's a dog. Oh, look at that pupper. Anyways, there's a 6-axis control system measuring inputs like lean angle, wheelie control, speed, etc. And maybe it's just not that sensitive enough to accurately gauge lane changes on the highway. I've never gotten it to self-cancel a turn signal on the highway, and I've also let it run for a long time and it doesn't like auto-cancel based on time, at least from what I can tell. Maybe in the future we'll have cameras that allow for smart features like that. But wow, what a great place to ride. Sorry, I'm just going to be endlessly distracted by the scenery. Cruise control is also incredible. Love to see it, and that helps with things like a range test or even riding anywhere. I even found myself using it on some city roads that are long and boring and didn't have much traffic. Anyways, the road mode. This is the riding mode that I think a lot of traditional bikers would like to use. It feels most like any other motorcycle. Less regen, but still a bit, like just enough to emulate the engine braking at higher revs and higher gears. But then switching it to rain mode essentially cuts regen entirely, which helps for, you know, bike stability in wet conditions. And it's more than a gas bike could do with its engine braking, which is cool. You can't just suddenly shut off the engine braking. I mean, I guess you could switch to neutral. But it also adjusts traction control and ABS to better protect and understand the slippery situations associated with rain. No rain today, so I'm not exactly testing that. Eco mode then adds regenerative and cuts throttle. nice relaxing riding, meant for road trips really if that's something that you're into, although depending on how you feel about the range you get out of this bike, maybe not. But eco mode is there and it's nice to see it. Of course all these modes can be adjusted in the screen itself, or you can copy the mode and build a custom mode based on that. But now sport mode, that's where it really gets spicy. Full beans for any passing speed you could possibly need. Like here, I'm going uphill on I-70 where you might recognize it from our hogback challenge. But when you gun it, just gone. Way more power than you could ever expect from a comparable gas bike at this altitude and uphill at that. I mean, we're at around 7,000 or 8,000 feet and this bike just isn't concerned at all. Electric does not care about the altitude, whereas a turbo or supercharged engine, so most bikes, would bog down quite a bit more. But anyways, let's take this exit, take some twisty roads, and then discuss a bit more of the handling. Hey, there's the other Livewire ones out on the experience rides. I joined them on one yesterday when I picked up the bike. Super fun setup, and it sounds like a lot of interest, or at least intrigue, from people checking out the Livewire One. Alright, with no one around, let's do a launch. Full beans! Yippee! It really sends it. Okay, 0 to 60 in something like 3 seconds. While 0 has more power, more torque, less weight, it is also about 3 seconds. I mean, maybe a hair less in some bikes. The math is a bit confusing. Maybe it's somewhat the wider tire on the Livewire helping put the power down, but it really has ample power. I think that just goes back to the whole argument of how much does the paper specs really matter. You don't need the power on paper of the other bikes to guarantee happiness. So now let's jump into some twistier roads. Let me explain my custom ride mode. Oh, there's the canceling turn signal working great. But yeah, 3 custom ride mode slots, which is awesome. I basically have mine currently set up like Zero's Canyon mode, which is basically sporty and regenerative. Except I just took it to the extreme. Like I just have everything at 100 right now. 100 power, 100 regen. I love that feeling. The whole idea is like this. I mean, a canyon. You speed up, you slow down, you speed up, you slow down. All slowing down, for the most part, is done through the regenerative braking instead of me grabbing the brake. And these canyons is where I first fell in love with the EV motorcycle concept. There's just nothing quite like riding something relatively quiet in these stunning environments, not having to worry about as many other drivers and taking full advantage of the powertrain. So some people might miss the manual transmission of a standard ICE motorcycle, but I surprised myself in not missing it. I like how simple this is, amplifying the experience of focusing on the purity of riding. I guess a different purity than those who value the purism of how bikes have always been. This is kind of a new normal, like it or not, and you don't have to like it. Obviously, the vast majority of bikes are gas still, but this is a new normal I'm willing to embrace. And I'm not against manuals. I have a manual car and I love that. Every time I get in a car that's not manual, I kind of miss rowing the gears, but I just don't miss this on here as much. All I have to think about is throttle input, balance, stature, things like that, and not even braking as much. Harley has the front brake that controls the front and rear simultaneously, which makes it a bit safer. You definitely wouldn't want to grab the front brake suddenly on most bikes, lest you flip right over the handlebars. So the regen itself is stronger than Zero from what I can tell. It's nearly one pedal driving. Not quite as aggressive as, like, say, Tesla and most others, but it does bring you to a complete stop if you're on, say, level ground. But more regen could potentially upset the bike itself, so I get why they kind of capped it at this point right here. But the regen into a corner allows for being able to sprint right through it, though you still need to be wary. If you're not familiar with canyons, especially many in Colorado, there could always be loose sand or dirt, and even wildlife, or sometimes a slow cyclist, or a car crossing the double yellow out of sheer laziness, which makes me angry. But here, let me show you the regen, the one pedal drive feel firsthand. See, nearly a complete stop. So I'm a tiny bit downhill, so that's why it's creeping a bit. But oh, there's the Denver skyline. Yeah, it's really quite fantastic. Good views all around. But anyways, lower speeds equals more range. That's another benefit to the canyons. I really should have been filming last night when I took this up the canyon by my house. I basically left my house with 95% state of charge and arrived back home after a good 40 minutes of riding in the canyons with 75%. So I didn't really use that much juice. Highway is where it's the most boring and the most range intensive, whereas canyons feature a lot of region and typically up and down elevation. So I always use less range than I expect in the canyons due to those factors. Oh, by the way, there's Coors, the biggest brewery in the world, and Golden in all of its splendor down below us. We're on Lookout Mountain in case you are curious. Anyways, riding position. It feels sporty and fun, but also not comfortable long term. I would need to adapt higher handlebars, a windscreen, but for some people I'm sure this would be perfectly fine. I just lean more towards a bit of an upright riding position. Lean towards, pun intended. But this doesn't have that upright riding position. You have to lean much more into it, which is fun, but just, I don't know, not quite my jam as much. But it's cool if you like it. The seat also isn't great long term for me, but then again, very few seats are great for me. But that's kind of it for canyons, carving, highway riding. I mean, it's a fun bike to ride. Like, I didn't expect to be this impressed, honestly. It's incredibly capable. So, running it down to 0, let's go see how this bad boy charges. All right, let's get it fired up and charging. Get the charge port open here. Nice. Nice. I hear some cooling, I think, happening. It's hard to tell what's the bike, what's the cable, what's the machine. It says waiting for EV. There we go, charging. Let's see what it ramps up to. It is a nice, bright, sunny day, so hopefully the GoPro captures something. Time to full, 291 hours. Oh. All right, ramping up, 5 kilowatts. Does not show on the actual screen of the bike what the power it's receiving is, so that's slightly disappointing. But we can at least see that on the machine here. 10 kilowatts. We should see a theoretical max of 25. We'll find out. 0 opts for level 2 charging exclusively. They have great onboard chargers. You can even upgrade them to bring the charging time total down to about an hour, a little bit more than an hour, but close to that. You can opt for like 6 kilowatts, I think default 3 kilowatts or so, or you can opt for 6 or even 9. It's kind of confusing, all the options they have. There's a lot of options on their website, and they have a lot of different bikes. Livewire, they just have one bike. The One, for now, they have other bikes coming, but this one, they decided to do DC fast charging. Now, they don't do level 2 charging, versus 0 doesn't do DC fast charging. They both chose different scenarios. I don't think it's as big of a deal as people make it out to be. DC fast charging is convenient for sure, but 0's claim is that, 80% of charge points, not the brand, the like points of charge, are level 2. So they chose the more common route, versus Livewire was like, we'll just do DC fast charging. Now it's not like a car where level 2 is like 6 kilowatts and then DC fast charging is like 100 something kilowatts, like the Sonic 5, an absolute charging beast that just pulled up. This thing will max out, as Harley claims, around 25 kilowatts. Now, in this charging session, I haven't really seen that yet, I don't think. We'll analyze the footage together, but this right here peaks at 24, 25 kilowatts. And it says 25, but actually the DC fast chargers installed at Harley Davidson dealerships only do 24, so that's kind of funny. I think it's about 320 volt architecture, so that's 320 volts at 80 amps. So we should be able to see that maximum here at this ChargePoint CP250, but I don't know if we've seen it. We'll see. What I'm also curious about is the thermal management. Being a liquid cooled motor, that's good, but I don't think it's a liquid cooled battery, it's air cooled. So today is actually perfect for charging tests and range test. 75 degrees or so, very little wind, not too hot, but it is sunny, and in Colorado the sun really heats things up. So we'll find out, especially doing back-to-back DC fast charging. So I'm DC fast charging now to 100, then I'm gonna do the range test, then DC fast charge again so I can get back to the dealership that I borrowed the bike from. So we'll see how that goes with the successive DC fast charging, because that's something we wanted to know. Can it handle that? Theoretically it can. I met the guy, Diego, who set the Cannonball record on electric motorcycles with this thing, not this exact one, but the Livewire One. And he obviously DC fast charged the whole way across the country. Technically, Harley says you should do 1 DC fast charging and then split it up with 4 normal AC charging. Once I found out Harley doesn't, or Livewire doesn't do level 2, I was kind of shocked. I really wish they did, because for example, plugging this in at home, all you can really do is trickle charge it at about 1.5 or less kilowatts, which is not great. It doesn't take forever. It's not like trickle charging a car. Easily overnight charge, but that's still not ideal. The only one that does both right now is Energica. So maybe Harley will change that at some point, but I really expected this to have DC fast charging and level 2. It's not like they've saved a ton of weight because it's still heavier than the Zero bike. So Livewire claims about 0 to 100 in 1 hour. And I think it's a bit more than that in my experience. And I've actually talked to other people who have ridden this and seen the same type of thing. So that could be a very optimistic claim, or a claim set around a very specific set of circumstances like temperature and the elements. But if it's more than an hour, that means this can charge the same rate as a Zero, which actually has a slightly bigger battery and it's only using level 2. So that's really fascinating, and it doesn't mean level 2 is worse than DC fast charging at all times. But it can be really convenient. Who doesn't love a good charging curve analysis? So start right off with 0%. The bike said 0%, but the station immediately assumed 1%, though it may have been on the edge, so the station readout could have been delayed. Anyways, starts right off ramping all the way to 20 kilowatts as you saw, and it stays nearly flat, hovering just over 20 kilowatts for the entire first 40% of the pack. 21.9 kilowatts delivered is what I saw as peak, right about 40%. Then after 42%, it gradually walks itself down. It's so gradual that I don't think you could really call it stair stepping. It just tapers gradually from just under 22 kilowatts down to just over 10 kilowatts over the length of 15%, hitting another plateau at 57% state of charge. Then it hovers around 10 kilowatts all the way to about 95% state of charge when it drops again gradually to 7.5 kilowatts or so, where it stays to the end. So the very end shows 99% on the charger before the charging stops, but the bike itself read 100% on the display. So there's just something not fully communicating there. And it looks like, according to the charger, about 14.7 kilowatt hours delivered. I also did another session after the range test coming up, and it showed no signs of overheating, which is impressive. I've heard Energicas could overheat, so I just need to do some testing with an Energica at some point soon. But it exhibited the same exact curve, and the station should be able to give it everything it requests. The bike has a 320 volt architecture, so I guess with this math, it never actually requested even 70 amps, just under that. So it didn't request the full 80 that it's supposedly capable of, and this charger should be capable of giving it everything it had. Again, thermals were perfect, the weather was perfect, so I don't think that was really a factor. So not a bad charging curve overall. It still charged 0 to 100 in about an hour and 7 minutes. So just over the stated hour it claims, which is really not bad. And I think if it had hit its peak, it would have been an actual hour. I just don't know why it didn't hit the peak, and I tried multiple charging sessions. But enough of charging. Now that it's at 100, let's go range test this baby. So just how far is enough? The range topic is a big topic. Everyone has incredible opinions about it, mostly for cars, and now we're starting to see more inputs on people's thoughts on motorcycles. So Zero claims usually up to around 200 miles for the bigger bikes on the city, and then around 100 or a bit less on the highway, and then a mixed environment between those two numbers. Now that's significant because Motorcycles are basically a brick. You're pushing a brick through the air. They're very non-aerodynamic when you consider this like shape and size and stuff. I think people assume they're extremely aerodynamic. They're fairly efficient, just not aerodynamic. So you're pushing a small battery and trying to go long ranges. That's hard. Energica can go even further, blows all the competition out of the water. I have not tested Energica or Zero at 70 miles an hour. I will be in the future, so stay tuned, like, subscribe. Can't see the wink through the glasses, okay. But the Livewire says 146 miles in the city, about 93-ish miles mixed, and they aren't super transparent on what they say highway, but I think 70 miles at 70 miles an hour is the stated range. So I am hoping to hit that today. I am wrapping up the charging here, and I'm in Bennett, Colorado. Beautiful, flat. There's very little elevation change. It's directly west and east on the highway on I-70. We'll do 70 miles an hour constant in the most eco-friendly mode, which we will use range mode in this case. And you can actually configure other modes to be even more eco-friendly, like around town, with upping the regen even more. On the highway, you're not using the regen like at a constant 70 miles an hour, so that won't really matter. Just gonna use a standard eco mode, not have anything crazy, like there's not even accessory ports running other things, no heated grips or anything like that. So ideally the most efficient mindset possible. No climate control to set, so that's kind of nice. And it's a beautiful day for this. 75 degrees, a little bit of wind here and there, but what's nice about this east-west loop is basically it counteracts the wind. So the tailwind I have out will be a headwind on the way back. Same with the minor elevation change. It's very, very little. So, and it's a loop test. So that's why we do the loop test, to counteract everything. So I'm not gonna bore you with the entire ride. So enjoy the time lapse and some lovely commentary. All right, so starting right off on this good old-fashioned range test. Make sure the camera's on here. So, getting over here to the highway, fortunately this charger I found is, well, A, it's free, and B, it's right next to the highway, which is really convenient. So, just a really quick, kind of a hop, skip, and a jump. Oh, by the way, here's the turn signal in action, and auto-canceling, yes, it works. Sometimes I forget, so I throw the turn signal back on. But we are going to gradually ramp up to 70 miles an hour. And yeah, again, no auto-canceling turn signal on the highway, but that's all right. But here we go, 70 miles an hour, cruise control set, which is super nifty. Love having cruise control. I mean, these range tests would really suck on a motorcycle without cruise control. But here we are, 70 miles an hour constant, and we do these loop style just to make sure it counteracts any sort of elevation changes and even wind changes. Like I said, I have a little bit of a head versus tailwind depending on the direction I'm going, and just a slight bit of elevation change, which is a decrease I think on the way east and a slight increase on the way back west. And over here you have the temperatures I can keep an eye on. So for the battery, the motor, the battery control, or the motor controller, all seems pretty normal. The battery was a bit high, but I think that was from basically DC fast charging it right before this. So coming down to 75% state of charge. This is our first check-in. We like to check in at every basically 25% increment from start to finish. And so far looking good. I mean, looking pretty almost right on the money for the overall expectation of going 70 miles. Of course, we'll see how the various environmental factors apply to this, but doing it as scientific as possible while still being real-world testing, I think is pretty important. It's definitely really fatiguing with the hands holding onto the handlebars, no windshield, just 70 miles an hour of wind hitting you in the chest and the head. It really adds up. But here I am taking the first exit, the turnaround point. We like to do this just over 50% because the last thing we want to do is hit like an unexpected headwind or something and then not make it back to the charger. I don't really have a backup solution in this case. All right, so looping back around here, still right above 50%, and then just doing the resume on the cruise control, which in theory is letting it get me back up to speed as efficiently as possible, because again, I am in range mode, so the most eco-minded mode from the factory. Of course, there is no climate control or anything to worry about that, no heated grips, so it is just the bike itself that we have to worry about. All right, here's your 50% state of charge checking in, and yeah, just a bit over 70 miles projected total because we're just over the halfway point. And actually, I had more of a headwind on the way here, so I should have a little bit of a tailwind on the way back. So I'm at this point expecting to be a bit over the estimate. And 25% check-in. Yeah, we are looking pretty good. Temperatures are all good. Everything's good, and we are really getting close to 70 miles, and we still have a good quarter of the battery left, which is actually a little bit unexpected. So I may have to do another quick loop on the highway between exits, trying to make all of this on the highway, of course, because we really want to stay at that 70 mile an hour constant to really see how it affects the overall range. Because with a motorcycle, I mean, you're basically pushing a brick through the air. It's really not aerodynamic. With less speed, it's far more efficient. So even 55 miles an hour would not be really a good showcase of the bike's true range capacity. So pulling off here on an exit, I know there's another exit a few miles back, so I'll just basically bounce between these one more loop just to run that battery down a bit more. All right, easing back to 70 miles an hour, back on the highway again. And yeah, all the way down to 12% at this point, having just done another turnaround. All right, so here is our final kind of approach, if you will. Getting off the highway here, gonna jump on the frontage road where I should be able to hit highway speeds again. Now, we are down in the single-digit percentile on the state of charge, and it still is giving me plenty of power. I'm not gonna push it hard. I still want to have that, conservative, eco-friendly mindset for this range test. But that's something to note. Like something like 0, I think, cuts power much sooner in the pack when you hit single digits. But this one really seems to give me everything I would need for normal riding, even down to like 2%, which is really pretty impressive. And even 1% doesn't feel scary. But we're almost to that point now on the frontage road here, just working our way down. And we have that alert symbol on the dash, that pops up, I think, roughly at 7.5%. Like, it's not right when you hit 7, but it's not right when you hit 6. It's somewhere in the middle, which is kind of funny. Basically, yeah, just saying low charge, you better find a charger quick, sir. Getting down to the wire. So join me in just a moment back at the charger, and we'll see what our final results are as I limp this back from the end of our highway range test. 83 miles. That's a successful range test, if I do say myself. Wow, more than I expected. I expected 70 miles at 70 miles an hour, which is what most people were saying. But at a steady 70 miles an hour, by the way, it was loop style. I had a little bit of a tailwind on the way back and a headwind on the way there. So I kind of expected the opposite, but that's what it ended up being. The wind wasn't a direct head and tail. It was a little bit of a crosswind as well, which, it negates you on both sides, which makes it even worse. But that just showcases real world highway range, 80 miles easily. Wow, what a machine. So that's what you can expect on the highway. Then you have to stop and charge. It does not charge as fast as a car, even though the battery is considerably smaller. It just peaks around, what are we doing right now? Yeah, we're down to 10 kilowatts at 48%. So it doesn't hold its peak for very long. It's basically level 2-ish speeds right now. And it continues to peter down throughout the pack, as we know. So that's the range. So what did we set out to decide or figure out? I guess specs on paper. How much does that matter? Because on paper, 0 would ideally blow this away. But what I came to realize is, it's like 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other, right? I love both bikes. This feels extremely solid. This just feels really well put together. Like Taycan, which has Porsche's extensive experience, this has Harley's experience building bikes. Very solidly built bike. Of course, some plastic here and there, but that's to help save weight, which it's already kind of heavy. So, final thoughts. Genuinely impressed. This carves canyons extremely well despite the weight. It does help that it has the wider tire, the 180 in the back and then the 120 in the front. Both great tires as far as specs, 17-inch wheels on both front and rear. And it handles great in the canyons, feels extremely solid on the highway. Of course, the weight helps there a little bit too, and the slim profile means not quite as much wind blowing you around. So, just in general, great bike. They pitch it and they can get away with the less range, smaller battery as the dream city commuter. And I think that really holds true. This around town is unbelievable. It's so solid, rock solid. Not as loud as it was pitched to be with the project concept Livewire back in the day. What do you think of the Livewire, the Livewire One? Can't wait to see what else Livewire brings to the table, but that's it. That's the bike. Now I got to charge to get back to the dealer where they're doing group rides. Thanks again to Harley for letting me borrow this bike and steal it from your event. As I could tell by my time with the event, doing some group rides yesterday, people are really interested, so intrigued. It was a good move for Harley to cut Livewire to be a different kind of entity, I think, because a lot of the hardcore Harley enthusiasts hate this bike. Doesn't have loud pipes, they don't want it. But there's so many people that are intrigued, tech enthusiasts, they just want to have the electric bike and they want to have the nameplate that's been around forever making it. Of course, Zero's been around a long time, but in the scope of Harley years, not nearly as long. What else do you guys want to see? I'm looking to connect with all the companies, get all the electric bikes in order because they're really compelling. And really, if you like EVs, it's hard to ignore these. I mean, my dream garage would probably be like a Taycan, a Rivian, a Tesla, a couple motorcycles, maybe a Polaris Ranger, maybe the ATV from Tesla, the little cyberquad thing.